to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the roll.
John Stedeman.
Here.
Debbie Tyrion.
Here.
Lyle Manette.
Here.
Melanie Arbogast.
Present.
And Lisa Nope is present. Not pregnant.
Thank you. Agenda items. There is a proposed Ware cemetery cleanup, and Lisa, I think you have the
I do have the proposal.
information on that, and Bob, Jack is here also.
Everybody should have copies. Copies and pictures of the brush and shrub that needs to be removed from Ware Cemetery. We have a proposal from E.L. Stanley Excavating for a total of $8,605 and seeking approval from the board to go ahead and do this work. The money is in the budget.
Is that the only bid that we
That
have?
is the only bid that I have. $8,605. That does include removal, like I said, of the tree brush and stumps. 172 yards of gravel, and to haul the gravel and to spread the gravel. And that's all included in that $8,605.
You sure it's in the budget? You got it?
Yes, it is.
I have a question for Bob on this. It says remove trees and brush and stumps along edge of proposed drive. When we were back there looking at all that, and we went back to that clearing in the back,
Right.
the removal that you're talking about is only the stuff regarding along that drive and opening the drive up.
Well, let's take all that.
And we have piles of brush.
And the underbrush that's back there, the small stuff.
Then we'll still have the piles of dirt.
Nope, the dirt's gonna be
The
all
dirt's
out.
gone.
Everything, it's gonna be to the point of it's all finished.
Except for that fence. The old fence that's back there.
We'll get rid of that too.
Because
So the whole acreage will be clear.
Will be cleared, it'll be all ready for graves and burial. The only thing we gotta take out is one big tree that's on the proposed drive to go around. And the drive, we marked it out last Sunday and it's all done. Most of the trees are marked too that we're gonna save.
So this first, number one, remove trees, brush, stumps along edge of proposed drive, that's not right then.
Not totally right.
okay, what?
I think that's a fairly reasonable price.
Yeah. What should it say? I mean, is he aware that there's more
Oh, yes.
than what is on here proposed? That's a reasonable price. The question is, do we want to get more bids, or?
I would like it to say that on
Yeah.
there,
You mean on the first bid, yeah.
on the bid.
Be
I
more
would
clear.
rather he be more specific on everything that he's going to do, rather than just say along the edge of the road, proposed road. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
cemetery
you're only
mound.
talking 89 feet around the perimeter of that drive.
Right.
Now, Melanie's been back there, Lisa's been back there. Most of it's cleared. It's just saplings here and there that we need to get rid of.
But the big piles in the back, that's going to be getting rid
That's
of.
all going bye-bye.
I think where she's referring to, and I agree, is that it doesn't say that all that will be removed. Is the same person removing all that,
Right.
proposing to remove all that?
Well, I have a 10-yard dump truck and I'm gonna work with him and they're gonna haul, he's gonna load it and I'll haul the stuff out of there.
So do you want to put this to the side until we get a more definitive?
I think we could accept it, it's just we need to
I think we
add
could,
that one phrase to add it.
I would think we would have to
Yeah,
add it in.
that
If we're not gonna ask for more bids, I would think if we wanted to put that or
What do you think?
upon acceptance of or something, because we definitely want to say somewhere that it's gonna, that
I
that's all
don't,
gonna be
personally, I don't
removed.
think we're gonna get a better bid than this, but,
Not for
I
all
know
that,
you won't.
not for all that.
He's saying going to see that it gets out, that's what he's saying, right? That's what
Right.
you're saying,
Right.
okay. So I don't think.
I just don't want any problems to come up later on and it not
You-
be done, and then they say, when
You-
you sign this contract, it doesn't say that in
You
the
won't,
contract.
you won't have any problem.
Is this somebody that you know?
Yes.
With the entire cemetery boundary,
You're talking about, well, it's mostly,
that would cover everything.
right, it's mostly in the back, the front, and then you got the piles of stuff
That's
in
still
the,
boundaries of the cemetery,
in the front
yes,
of
it's
the,
all within the boundaries.
yes,
so we cover the whole thing.
yeah.
I would go for that, that's fine.
With the wording as it is now, or do you want more in?
No,
Within the boundaries of the.
within the boundaries of the cemetery.
Well, it still would be within the boundaries, even if you defined it by this, you're just saying to include.
Yes,
Maybe it should say to include.
everything within the boundaries or something like that.
I mean, I understand where Debbie's coming from.
It's just
She wants
for
it
our own
written
protection
down that
later.
it's,
I know this guy's a very reputable guy, and I don't think that there would be a problem with. Why invite a chance?
well, you still want to cover all the
We
areas.
should cover all of the areas, because we could have laid some stuff on somebody else's property.
Who did we use last time? Wasn't it?
Pardon?
Didn't we use Al Stanley last time?
Right.
That's what I thought. I don't think anybody was dissatisfied with the work he did, but I guess Debbie, let's see what Lisa's thinking and see if you agree with adding that, and then if he doesn't accept that addition on the proposal, that should be something we would have to.
Well, if that's what
You
Bob
won't-
says
you
he's
won't
going,
have-
I don't think you'll have any problem with
I don't
accepting
think
it.
so either.
And I'm
But I just want to have it in the contract.
Right.
under the understanding that was, without the verbiage being put right on this proposal, that was the understanding.
Right.
So what did you write on it?
I just added on here to include cleanup within the boundaries of Ware Cemetery.
That's sufficient.
So you wanna,
So I'd like to make a motion to
can we give it a document number
oh yes.
of 071013-01?
Oops, I'm on June's. Would you say that again, please?
Sure, DOC
Yeah.
071013-01.
Why are you going 10? Because that was the date of the proposal, or? do
I
you
guess
want
so.
today's?
Okay, we should do today, 16, excuse me. I stand corrected correctly, yeah, I was looking at the date.
3-1.
Yeah, no dashes, just 071613-0, oh, you're correct, 01. Yeah, you're talking about the end there.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to accept the proposal from Al Stanley Excavating in the amount of $8,605, with the addition to number 1, remove trees and stumps along the edge of proposed drive for Bob Dykema, to include cleanup within the boundaries of the Ware Cemetery.
I'll support that.
You don't reference document number?
Document number 071613-01.
Do we have a motion by Lisa? Did you make that?
I made the motion.
Lisa, support by Lyle? Roll call, please.
Don Stedman,
Yes.
Debbie Terrian,
Yes.
Lyle Manette,
Yes.
Melanie Erdrich, yes.
Aye.
Lisa, no, aye.
Motion is carried.
I have one question. Did you have any luck in finding me some prisoners?
Not yet,
Okay.
but you should wait for the comment at the end, thank you. We'll get to the end.
Did you
Okay?
say finding prisoners?
Oh, I can find
That's
prisoners.
okay, we can find them in the place.
Yeah. All right, the next thing, we're just starting down the road of discussing ordinance 24. Everybody had a copy of ordinance 24. I hope they had a chance to review it at home. And if they did, we're gonna start with just the ordinance itself, first and foremost. And we'll start right with a short title. Everybody okay with that?
Melanie, I know you said you were going to talk
I didn't make you another copy. I got one.
I got it.
There's one right here. Anybody else? I made, Don had forgotten his to bring his stuff. I got you one. There you go. Yep. Okay, so the short title, is everybody okay? The board's okay with the short title?
Who put it together?
Well, it was written, it was adopted in '90, so that's, I'm not sure. But if there's no questions there, we'll just move through each section till we hit the point. And what I'd like to do is make notes of anything people are suggesting that's on the board. At the end, we'll take any public comments, or they can write them down and give them to us later. Right now, we're just gonna work through
Each section.
Yeah. So if the short time's okay, we'll go to section 1, scope, purpose, and intent. Have we, no questions or anything regarding that? Did everybody read through it, all the board members?
Yeah, I'm just reading through it again.
I think I've read it 10 times
Yeah,
in the past 5 years.
at least. So if the board doesn't have anything on that one, we'll move to the second part. We ready to move on? Is everybody? Don, you
Is
good?
what?
Are we ready to move to the next section?
Yeah.
Lisa?
Yes.
Okay, section 2, fire department establishment, funding, power, and duties, part A. Same thing, do we have any real questions there?
The only question I have on A is that last township fire members, are you referring to the fire department?
Well,
The very last.
yeah, you're talking about in,
See, we used to have the fire board,
Mhm.
fire commission.
well, the township board will consider recommendation from the township fire members, that's the memberships of the fire department.
So it's not just the chief then?
Not the way it's written here. It says, you're talking about recommendations,
Mm-hmm.
but it just says the township board will consider recommendations. Should it be written differently? It should go through the fire department first. It does come to the township board for final approval, but it comes through the chief right now. So that's a question you have of how that,
Is the intention at some point down the road to re-establish the fire committee like they used to have?
I don't know. That's something we'll have to look through, but we need to
Well,
really
all I was
establish.
saying, maybe we could add that word in here,
And
and fire committees.
I'm not sure, that's something, is that the best way to do it, because this is the ordinance, and then we also have the SOGs. So,
But the ordinance is the law.
this is the law.
And that's what I'm
Yeah.
asking you, do you
That,
think we ought to include that?
it's something to think about, but I'm not sure that we would, because then are you required to have one?
No,
We
you're
don't want to
not.
make it so you're required to have one, so the question is, how should the wording be? That's a section we need to reread and look at better. Is that part A?
I don't see anything that says we have to have something, it just says
There isn't
we'll
now.
consider recommendations, and
Yeah,
I just think a fire committee ought to be listed as one of the,
well, then that's what I'm saying, then we need to put a question on that, and the board members need to review that section.
You're wanting,
That A,
you're
2A.
wanting,
He's wanting to know if we should include that in the ordinance, the fact that a fire committee, but I'm saying then is it going to require that you have a fire committee?
See, I
That's
don't
the
think-
question too, so that's something we need to rethink.
and you're thinking just for recommendations that, because
See,
that's not
then-
even to the hiring part yet, that's
No.
just
no, this is just recommendation for anything within the fire department.
Okay.
Well, this is recommendations, but it would seem like anything like that, as it's set up now, goes through the fire department to the board versus the other way. So that's a question I'm just putting on the side. That's something to think about, because we're definitely gonna have to go back and rethink areas where there's questions. So I just put a note on mine. I'm not sure how you're doing, if you're writing notes or scribbling as you go. Anything else on part A of that section?
Not for me.
Okay, then we have part B of that.
I don't have any questions for B.
Any, Don?
We're still at section 3,
No, we're on section 2B.
2B.
Yep. Debbie, do you?
No.
Lyle?
No.
Okay, I don't have any questions on that section.
It's pretty much cut dry.
Yeah, it is, but still. Section 3, chief's duties, 3A.
I think the pleasure of the board sounds weird.
Well, that's, yeah, it's just the verbiage they used at the time. Any questions on A?
No.
Okay, down to 3B. I see one thing in 3B myself, and that's where it says engineers, drivers. That's not even in the list of, you know, we have chief, captain, lieutenants, engineer, drivers, and firefighters.
Yeah, just that one word you just dropped out.
Well, and there's, I think you also have lieutenants, you have lieutenants in there, but yeah, I'm not sure what that's something we should need to look at, because I don't remember seeing that in anything since then,
Because
so.
they're not segregated from the firefighters.
Yeah, I'm not sure, I guess that's on maybe, when this was created, that's an idea of larger departments, that's what they do. Interesting, so,
So that'd be something we would just take out.
well, to look at taking out, yeah. So I just have it circled in a note in what I was doing. Is there anything else on that?
Not for me.
Okay. Don? Okay. We'll move down to 3C. This is where we were talking about the SOGs are created. Any questions on that? Lisa? Lyle or Deb?
No.
Okay. 3D. I think the question arose, and this question was asked too, about getting a report monthly regarding personnel and operating problems. That's something we don't get. We get a report regarding calls. So that's something I will need to talk to Larry about. That's in there. We do get the annual report, but
So you're
the
saying
monthly report.
any personnel or
Personnel and operating problems
you
in
want
a
reported
in a monthly report, that according to the ordinance, it's supposed to be a monthly report. And there might be a monthly report of no issues, but it still needs to be. We do get the yearly report, and we get the monthly report of the runs
Okay.
You
and
should
stuff.
require that.
That's what I'm saying, I'm gonna talk to Larry about that. It was rereading all this stuff, and I even underlined it, but I don't disagree that, I don't have a problem with that being in there. I just say,
If it's in there,
that
then we
came
should be
to
doing
light that I
it.
need, yeah,
And
that I
if
need
it's
to
not-
say, hey, this is something that is,
If it's not necessary,
Not-
then it needs to be removed.
or it needs to be
No.
actually done, but as far-
Yeah, it needs to be done.
yeah, so. But as far as any problems with what it says, does anybody have problems with that?
Does this have anything to do with reviews of personnel?
It doesn't say it in that manner.
Because it says
much
shall
as-
review all personnel and operating problems. So-
Yeah, it just is, it's almost like, I don't know if it's having to give a, it's again, the context of when this was written also. The chief shall review all personnel and operating problems with, and shall report monthly to the board. So that is where.
Is the key word
it's-
problems though?
Right. Well, personnel and operating problems, yes.
Okay.
And then shall report monthly. So the shall is in there, not a may.
And you need to know insurance looks at this.
Pardon?
The insurance looks at this.
The insurance, oh yeah, they look at all that stuff.
They ask for it.
Right. So whether or not that should be in there or if it should be reworded, that's one thing we need to think about.
And there's a problem with that. They're supposed to be, anytime you're written up, it's supposed to be in the personnel file.
Mhm.
He keeps his own over there, but it doesn't always reach our office.
Well, this is a monthly report
But I
itself.
mean, the
Right.
problem part of it, so on, could be, we could get word of that at that time.
Yeah, I'm not sure. That's what I'm saying. That's a whole something that needs to be
Well, I
looked at. But do you think it should, I mean, we agree that we don't have a problem with this being in there.
No.
No.
Just-
There's a
okay.
violation right there.
So that's where I will
There's a violation right
talk to
there.
Larry about that.
Larry's not supposed to have.
So-
that.
Okay, then let's move on to 3E.
Now we're going to this one, E.
Is there any questions on that or issues or? No matter what, it still comes back to the board. The board, final approval is the board, so
So at that point, it could be
overturn.
overturned?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The final approval is subject to the board.
Okay.
Yeah. We okay there?
I'm okay.
Okay. F,
I'm okay with that.
yeah, does that?
Yes.
G. I have a issue with this one only in regards to, it refers to purchases that exceeds $1,000 shall conform to the township policy regarding written quotes and competitive bidding. We have to look into whether or not there's a policy on that, because I did not see one that I came across. So the policy right there is a question that I had. Because that's an interesting amount there to have in there too, so. I think the last thing I saw, it said something about $20,000 for bid, so that's really something to look in.
Yeah, because that's not being done right now.
No, and I don't even think, like I said, I'm not even sure, the policy I came across didn't say,
Could we ask Fred if there ever was one?
well, we'll wait till after, we'll wait till after, but yeah. That's something too that's a question on the amount too, is that, does that make sense in today's market? This was created when, 90?
Well, it's not very much anymore.
Not in this market, it's like $500 back when, so. But I think that's something we need to look into. So I would make a question on that part myself. And then we're down to H. Now the main section, the main sentence there, and then we'll go down through the sections.
Good.
So H1 makes perfect sense.
Indeed.
H2, again,
Good.
makes sense. H3 makes sense. H4, same makes sense. H5 makes sense. H6. Brings us to 4A. Same thing, the word engineers ended up in there.
Can I add something to
Which
what
one?
the chief is responsible for?
You talking about the previous thing?
Yeah,
Sure. What do you propose?
Three, I'm thinking that all of the firefighters should yearly have a review. And that he should be ahead of reviewing each of the
All
firefighters.
firefighters shall have a
Annual review.
annual review.
And I think the chief needs to have an annual review too, but that
Yeah,
has to be
that would be
somebody
done by
that
the board.
The board has
So
to.
you're saying that would be under, so you're actually adding two things.
Right.
And
That's
you're
not
saying that
actually a chief's responsible for, but it's
He
something
is-
that the board is responsible for doing.
you're talking about the chief's review, but the firefighters review, that would fall under the chief.
Right, right.
And I'm
Annual
trying to
review.
remember what it says in, if there's anything in the
The
SOGs.
policies is slightly addressed.
I know, we need to look at that compared to the two, because
Absolutely.
ordinance 24 and the SOGs is mostly what runs this, because he's required to read these and we adopted them. So the policy itself, we need to find out if we need to review that anyway, that's 2004.
Well, and then this is a disagreement with some.
So then, if that's what's requiring, what we keep this in what's required, then it needs to be provisions in there that says that that the fire department is whatever mandated under these two things.
So in
But that's
order
a
to
different
have a
name.
review of the chief, that would have to be under something else. That wouldn't have to be under H then, because
Right.
that's something that the board
That
has
comes
to.
from the board.
Right. But I don't know
No,
where that would
it could
fit
still
in.
be, it could still be under there, because, and the reason it could be is, it should say that where all firefighters have a yearly review by the chief, but at some point, it needs to be stated in here too, that the chief's review would be under the direction of the board, because of the fact that he is a firefighter, but he can't be reviewed by himself. So I think we could still figure out a way to word it
Yeah, because he is.
and cover it in here, even though it says the chief, it could be another, it could be G instead of H, the next,
Right.
or some,
See, I think it
It
would
could be
fall
I.
under the section 2 in the establishment.
that could be. But with something really that would be, yeah, could be.
See
Well,
it,
Well, I guess he would be responsible to make sure that all the reviews were done.
for the
Whether it be for
firefighters,
himself
but I
or
think
for
it would be,
firefighters.
because
You're talking about just the chief's review would
just
be
the
under,
chief's review would be under,
you think it should be under 2?
I think it should be under 2, and then maybe implement
C,
a C.
under 2C, okay. That would make sense.
Because the township board shall approve rules and regulations for the operations of the department and the care of the equipment, so that, I think that that's where it would fall under.
But we still would want it to fall somewhere within here, too,
Correct.
within this.
So if you put it all together, at least it would be in one place. Do you know what I mean?
I
That
know.
reviews should annually be done.
Well, yeah, I guess the main thing is figuring out
Where we're
what you want it, then figuring out where it is, or you can always refer to after this, all firefighters, and it should say the chief reviews, C-section, whatever, regarding chief review, or some reference, if we put it back in the other.
Yeah,
I know what you're saying, so it's all in one area, or references in that area.
okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now we're on,
Section 4.
yep, section 4A, where we have the word engineers in there again.
Now, isn't a lieutenant considered an engineer? Is that how it works?
I don't know, because it says lieutenant right before engineer.
Right, but I mean now in the fire department.
That's
Is
what
it
it
one of
says.
the-
I don't think it's I've not heard him referred to as engineer, so I'm not sure
We
that,
need a definition of what they're
Yeah.
referring to, right?
yeah.
That's in this part.
And I think it's just a matter of making sure what we have in here is spelled out, and it might be
Right.
different verbiage because, and it might not be, but just the word engineers keeps popping up.
Okay.
And it refers to the,
Well, I'm sure in 1990, the state requirements were different from now too, so
that's probably true, yeah. Okay, section 4B. Is that,
I don't see
reasonable?
anything out of, yes.
Okay.
You still
We're good?
Yes,
It's okay.
okay. Moving right
Debbie and
along.
Lyle, you good?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Okay, section 5A. See, here's where you're talking about where that, what they have to meet. Qualifications?
Mhm.
Do we have a background check done by our applicants?
We have a driving
A
test
driving,
and a physical. We have a driving test and a physical.
Does the township pay for it?
Yes,
the fire department pays for it.
well, yeah, but it's a
Right, but
township,
it comes
so-
out of there, okay.
Do we ever tell them who they have to go to? According to this is the
Yeah.
township's choice of a physician. I don't think we ever get entered into that.
they
Yeah.
have, I think they use,
Yeah, they use, but that's a good question.
thank you,
actually.
yeah. No, they
So-
do use,
Well, they switched around. They used to use the occupational one,
right, okay.
but now they're going up to Hart or Shelby because
Well, we
that's
need
where
to find out
Seaworks,
what
and
they're
they
using
changed that
then.
without us even.
Well, and that's something, so then that's something, that section 5A we need to look at regarding
I think,
that part.
I think they should also have a background check,
Okay, so you think of that in additional,
yes. It's just that even when I go and work as a volunteer at a school, they have to do a background check on me, and I don't think that's a bad thing to do.
How deep of a background check are you talking though, Debbie?
I know they have to pay for it to be done. I think they just file a form with the,
Because there's different levels of background checks that you can do.
so that's something we should find out
And it
about.
doesn't, everything's not timing if they have felonies or misdemeanors, or if they're on the sex offenders list.
well, it's a
There's
good
different
one to
le-
be on.
What's that?
A good one to check.
Absolutely, but I'm just saying, there's different levels of
Okay.
background checks that you can do.
If you can find out what they are and kind of give, because that would be part of what should be included in there, how in
Okay.
depth. And Lyle's question too, that's a good point. The physicians, where the physician,
Yes.
and that should be, say, not necessarily that, the verbiage here would be okay as long as we had a policy in place, because from time to time you might want to change who that physician is, and so we need that.
And if
ability
they came to us,
without
we
changing
would
the
probably
ordinance.
say, go ahead and change, but at least
Yeah.
we would be aware of it.
But this verbiage is good, but we need to, would have to have a policy spelling it out better.
Do they go to the state for the driving record then?
I assumed it, yes.
Oh, that is right, okay.
Good question there. Okay, any more questions on that?
No.
5B.
Well, hold on, back up.
Okay.
It will just depend on, we will need to put more verbiage in depending on what the results of the background checks state to, right? That part will have to be added. if
Yeah,
we
sure.
decide. Okay,
If you're gonna, and especially once you can find out what kinds are, what's available.
right,
Yeah, so that would be an addition into this,
Correct.
the verbiage
right.
regarding that, yes. $5B. makes sense.
Looks good to me.
Well, except for I don't know what would warrant the probation period being extended.
Well, that's why it says may.
Well, sometimes they haven't passed the test yet, or the test hasn't been offered at the end of the
Within
6
that
months. It might
timeframe.
take them another 3 weeks to.
And you gotta remember, as the state regulations change, is what's required, that sometimes make, like Lyle's saying, if that stuff doesn't all fall, or you can't complete it all in that time frame,
Okay.
because it definitely keeps changing. Okay,
All right.
5C.
Okay, so somebody who's on probation gets all compensation and benefits, the same as a regular firefighter.
Well, they get their, the pay.
What are the benefits?
We,
Because I don't know.
I'm not sure what they were referring
Well,
to
I think
here.
it's the insurance coverage.
Yeah, but,
Okay.
and that's just general, but we don't have any, we don't have any,
Special thing.
no, not in this township. So, I know there's all the other stuff that's,
But if they were
Bigger
already,
person.
even though they're probationary, they would still
They
be.
would still be
Oh,
under
yeah.
the policy.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Sounds good to me then.
okay. You guys? Lisa's still reading?
Okay.
All right. Section 6. 6A, and then this, we also had the opposed of the other. That. I'm almost said, you know, this is the controversial section. What we should do is skip that, go right down through the rest, and then come back to that, because that's where we're gonna be at the longest.
Oh, the disciplinary?
Yeah, the section 6.
Alright.
So go to section 7. That's compensation information, which pretty much is cut and dried. That's handled every year through the budget and the adoption of the budget. That's section 8A.
Except at 7, we don't, in 7, we don't get them quarterly for payment.
No, you're right, we should change that too, because I suppose at this point, that's the way it was
Monthly.
paid, so it should just be changed, that word.
It's a monthly,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, just a correction of how the pay's done now, yeah. Because otherwise they wouldn't get paid till, for every 3 months, yeah.
Which a lot of departments do, but that's just.
That's true.
I was gonna say, I have a check form every month.
Yeah,
But at least it's
Yeah.
not.
but I'm sure when it started out as volunteers in limited time, that probably made sense.
Yeah.
Okay, section 8A. I think that makes sense.
It's fine.
Section 8B. Section 8C.
It's good.
Section 9.
Sounds fine to me.
Section 10A. That definitely makes sense. section 10B.
Can I get a definition of what's considered privately owned vehicle or equipment?
They're privately owned vehicles, they're personal, they're responding to the fire under personal.
Okay, that's, okay.
The question of the, if there's privately owned equipment, I think most, probably when this was written in a volunteer basis, there probably was times when they supplied their own,
Okay,
you know.
okay. Let's see, section what?
I think you skipped to section 11A there.
I was gonna say, I don't
Yeah,
see that in
I see
10.
where she skipped down.
Oh, I did skip.
Yeah,
I'm okay with 10.
okay, good. Now to 11A,
Okay.
where the question raised.
So we have to, the board has to give approval of equipment and privately owned vehicles.
Privately
being
owned.
there. Because then that way we can keep track of what
Kept
that
at
is.
And we ran into that issue.
Yeah.
So that's a good
Yeah.
point to make, that anything that's privately owned, just like we have to have a list of inventory for the fire department,
We need the
then if
privately owned
people
list,
are
too.
using their privately owned anything, yeah,
Right.
there should be one that is kept of that also.
I agree with that.
And then they would initial when they remove it. Private vehicles may be parked in designated, that makes perfect sense.
C makes perfect
Yeah,
sense too.
he does, yes. Okay.
No more beer in the fire station.
I don't think there has been for years. 12A,
They used to have parties with beer.
I know, but when we formed the firefighter association, we said no alcohol was going to
No,
be
but I
involved
mean-
at all.
They used to have parties, card games.
yep. So it's 12A, makes sense, yeah, and that's part of the law itself, so
What'd you say about the law?
that's all part of a law. If anything's raised, it has to go through the treasurer, township treasurer.
Depending on if it's like the Blue Lake Firefighters Association, it doesn't have to because they have their own.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure how that works within here, because if you get down to C, there's a reference to that name itself, so. But how does A look?
Well, I'm just worried that it says, okay, we're raising funds for the fire department by having a race, but the township board okayed us to have our firefighters association. And
Well,
we're
that's where-
separate from the township.
That's where the question is, though, if any revenue solicited in the name of the fire department shall be deposited with the township treasurer, that's the question
Okay,
you're
and
raising.
it's because now it says firefighters association rather than the Blue Lake Township Fire Department is what we're referring
Well-
to, is that correct?
No, if you get down, let's
I'm looking at C now.
skip down to C. It says, the personnel of the fire department are authorized to incorporate a tax exempt charitable organization. The personnel of the fire department didn't do that.
The what? I'm
The
sorry.
personnel of the fire department did not do
No,
that.
they did not.
The organization shall be known as the Blue Lake Township Firefighters Association, which happens to be
But it is.
the same name. The purpose of the association shall be to provide for the social development of personnel and the betterment of fire protection in township.
Okay.
What I have to find out is how that works, since the association is formed independent of the township. Because this is saying formed by the township or the township personnel, and what you have formed is independent. So thus concluding nothing is being run through the township treasurer or anything, because it's independent. What I gotta find out is if we're okay with
Well,
that.
from what it says in C, it would be okay.
Well, it still says the personnel of the fire department have the right to organize under that name. So I've just gotta find out more from what the law says, law point says, yeah, I don't know myself.
So is that something we should take note of?
Yeah, I already have
Personnel of the
it.
fire department?
I already have the C because it's an independent organization that is doing it as a 501c3, which is what B requires, but it still has A and C refer to the personnel and B refers to on behalf of the fire department, yet not solicited in the name of the township or the fire department.
And that's what we are.
That's what you are, but then I have the thing where we have the name, and I don't think that makes any difference other than
I
we
don't
would
think
not
we
want
need to
it.
have that name
We
in
would
there.
need to take, we need to review this whole section, because at this point, it is totally independent. And if we need to keep that in at some point where the fire department personnel want to create something, then like you're saying, then we need to redo C to reflect.
We need to
Something
take out the
different.
name of it, I
Yeah,
guess.
I'm thinking, but I'm gonna double check just because of what it says there. I don't know what the law says. I think
They
it's,
haven't had a big association for many, many years.
I understand that, but I'm just saying, the way it's written and what we're requiring, and what the law says might be where we need to just, as Debbie's saying, in C, take out that name and refer to it something different,
Just
not take out the
as-
section.
Yeah, just
Just-
as the personnel of the fire department.
Yeah, because it does refer to independent 501c3s in B.
Yeah.
And then it goes back to referring to what is created through the fire department itself, so. I think it's just semantics, I think we can get that cleared
Are
up fairly easy.
you saying that the people who support the fire department are not tax exempt? I'm trying to understand.
No, we're talking about
The way this is
the
worded.
501c3 regarding fundraisers they're doing. You're talking about fundraisers themselves.
Yeah.
See, they were called.
So this is the fundraisers, like the race and stuff they do, and they purchase stuff for the fire department. Well, if you go down to C, then it refers to the name of the association is what they're currently using, but it's not created by the fire department personnel, it's created independently. So I think there's just a semantics there, something that has to be cleared up regarding the name. But I gotta make sure regarding the law, because I don't know what the law says at all. Other than if money's raised by the fire department itself, it's gotta come through the treasurer.
Right.
That's the only part.
See, this isn't being raised by the fire department.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. I think
So that's more like B is what we are.
B is what
C
you are.
is just using the name that we happen to use, because
And-
I didn't know that was, I didn't know that was.
I
Yeah.
guess my concern, I mean, not concern, my thought was that at one point, prior to my coming here, the supporters of the fire department was tax exempt, weren't they?
But that's where the name came in C, and that's what we're saying, right now, it's not through the fire department personnel anymore, though. So that's where, just as a matter of making sure, and like Debbie says, then that portion could be reworded, that name taken out, and not lose anything from this, but still correct that, because
Because
right
this is
now.
too specific the way it's written. right
And
now.
absolutely was a reason for it at the time, I'm sure it's probably because they had one.
Okay.
So, you know, I don't know for sure, but I'm just saying, yeah, I think it is.
The records from the old one were really bad. Weren't very good records from the
Yeah.
old one.
So other than that question about the name and how that fits into all this, that's the only
Yep,
thing I see in this whole section. That's,
yep, I agree.
and then of course you get the section 13, which is regarding,
Something that you
Yeah.
have to have in there.
yeah, so, and then the adoption. So-
Excused.
You certainly can. Before we get into 6,
Behavior.
that's a good place for a recess.
Thank you.
That would be fine.
Yeah, a short recess. Anybody else? You good?
If you're gonna have a recess,
Yes.
I've got a prepared statement here, and it's not gonna be 3 minutes. If you're not gonna give me more than 3 minutes to read it, I anticipate it's gonna be somewhere between 15 and 18. Would you make a copy of these and
Can I
pass
do
them on?
that? Can I do that?
You take it,
Sure. I would actually prefer
I
that.
signed it and dated the bottom.
Yep. I'll make a note in the end before public comments that you,
What's that?
I'll make a note before public comments of what you.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'd like to know where that 3-minute rule comes from.
Self-imposed.
Muskegon County Road Commission. Look at their agenda, that's what they do.
Yeah,
That's baloney, because if you're a citizen of any municipality and you have a beef, if it takes 10 minutes or if it takes 40 minutes, you should have the right to say what's on your mind.
Fred, does the county road commission follow that? The 3-minute part?
Road Commission had what we had when you first started out. Comment period before agenda items only. Comment period after non-agenda items. That was a violation of the Constitution, telling people what they could talk about. And the County Road Commission is in violation of that as well.
and a couple of the county road commission meetings that I've gone to, no, they didn't follow that completely.
Didn't they?
No. Nope.
Well, it's gonna be up to the moderator.
Yep, yep.
Well, we live in America, we don't live in Yugoslavia or Denmark
Yeah,
or
like I
somewhere
said
else.
last night, it
Or
was when
Russia.
Mr.
Or
and I were
Russia.
just sitting outside,
China.
relaxing and talking, and
If you don't keep your comment to less than 3 minutes, we're gonna shoot you.
Cuba,
I was like,
Yeah.
Fidel,
uh-oh.
This will be at the end.
Not to be smart, Melanie, but I'm challenging you.
Thank you, Melanie.
Yep, thank you.
Your 3-minute rule is a violation of our constitutional rights.
Aw, poor
No.
guys.
Yes,
No, I have to let you have public comment, Bob.
that's right.
Yep.
If it takes 10 minutes or if it takes
No.
30 minutes, you have no right to cut us off.
There has to be semblance of order.
Pardon?
There has to be
Kids
semblance
eat
of
what they
order.
want to eat. instead of
Wait,
what they're-
that's fine, but we don't live in Russia either.
Thank you.
We don't live in Yugoslavia.
Thank you, Bob. We're back in, are we back from recess?
I'm back.
All right. I think we're gonna start with the actual ordinance that's in place.
Just
Just
section six.
Section 6A. And what I want to know is the same thing. Looking at each section, if there's, where we feel there should be changes, before we get into the introduction of
So you're not
proposed
going
amendment.
back to like section 3,
Only, we're back, nope, we're not even to that. I think once we get notes taken down, we all need to digest what was written, and we need to gather some more information.
so we'll go back to that at the next one.
We'll have to come, you mean where we've noted the posting, yes. But I think we need to do a couple of things where we look at all the ideas that came forth here before we get to that point. So section 6A itself. Does anybody,
I think it's clear.
Oh, what's going on out there?
Yeah, those are all the Boy Scouts.
Don't you forget the typical
anybody
storm
with their
coming.
windows open might have a little bit of water in their vehicle. Yeah. I'm just seeing the mist fly. Okay, so see section 6A. Do you guys have any
No.
questions on that? Okay. Section 6B. Any disagreement with section 6B or any issues? Don?
Okay.
Lisa?
Written evaluation or whatever it is, that, you're the only one that gets that, right?
The written one.
A written violation, a written disciplinary procedure.
No, I don't necessarily
Larry,
get
it
that.
goes to you first, right?
If it's something that's coming to the board as it progresses, yes.
But not the first complaint. You're the only one that gets that.
Not necessarily the first complaint. You're saying that's where we go back to this. That needs to come to the
Who
board
governed
where
him?
we discuss that.
Tom, here's the board.
Section 3D, where all personnel and operating problems within shall report monthly to the township board. That's where the initial, it's when it's coming to the board. That's where you're asking that, and that would clarify that question altogether.
We would all be getting it then.
Correct.
Because it'd be coming to all the board members on any problems that the fire department was having.
Correct. According to
Any
this
discipline,
ordinance.
any disciplinary procedure would come monthly to the board.
Correct, according to this ordinance that stands right now. Correct. Yeah,
That's the way it should have been.
that's the way it
going,
should be.
right?
But that hasn't been the way it's been, right?
Well, every little thing that's going on hasn't come here altogether until probably progressing down the road, not the initial. So that's where that initial information is going to be, and that's what I said. We already have that in there, and that's a really good point. So then I'll be meeting with Larry to talk to him about that. So B,
I'm fine with that.
well, he's still reading. You guys okay with B?
We have questions.
No.
Do you have a question?
I do.
Which, on 6B?
I guess I don't know what the word "want" is.
Okay, that's a good thing, so you want definition. And the same thing goes
I
to...
personally don't know what it means. If
Yeah,
the degree of wantness,
I don't know what it means either, Lyle.
does that mean the person did something knowing that it was wrong, or does it
yeah,
mean that?
it does, but disregard, I guess, would be, but we'll get a better definition. And one thing too is that's not a word that's used anymore, so the
Well,
good
no.
thing is a clarification should be put in there, or a definition,
just
or a different
eliminate-
word.
You could just eliminate 5 for that.
Or see if there should be a word put in there. Good point, so 5,
You're right, 5 could be just.
yeah, yeah. It's pretty much a disregard. So I'll put a
Because
note
I
in
don't
there.
think anything, nobody would want to commit something that would be brought to the attention of the board or
I would hope
the
not.
chief or anything.
I definitely, I absolutely agree, but I would hope not, so.
Yeah,
But,
it's,
but should it be in there anyway? I don't know, that's something to think about, but I think I'll get you a better definition anyway, just because it's in there.
I'm gonna go home and look it up.
It's not wontons either. What? It's not. It's not wontons. So, section C, this is the most controversial section. I know I already disagree with it because I believe that in here, that it requires that an employee have a public hearing. And I disagree that I believe they need to be able to have a closed hearing if the employee requests it, not the board. It can only come through the employee request, but that's a good point. So I think that's our biggest controversial part.
And I would like us to go to, or at least consider, where it states the employee shall respond in writing or orally at the public hearing as they may choose. I think that that needs to be
Strictly in writing.
strictly in writing.
I think you're correct there. Then there can't be any,
Misinterpretations
True.
of what.
so there's a question there, so the,
Simple.
Correct.
and some of that was referred to in the introduction of the amendment. But that's something written only in the right for a closed session. So there's the words. Because, and this makes perfect sense because they have to be provided with a written copy.
It sounds weird, provided within a written copy.
Yeah, verbiage in, never always makes sense to me, because sometimes they use words that, I don't know if they use the wrong words or what, but if you read some of the stuff written in different time frames, you'll see a lot of the stuff's written that way, so. So that's the section.
So is this right here what you're thinking of changing it to?
No, this is, what I handed out last was, handed out by Bob Dornbush. He said his comment was going to go longer than the 3 minutes.
Oh, I see, so
And
he's wrote it out.
It's, so we'll refer to this at the end in the comment,
Okay.
and just
Okay.
make sure there's a reference, so it's in.
Oh, okay,
in-
I'm sorry.
in the record, that's
I didn't
okay.
realize what it was.
Well, on this, within,
Mhm.
you said that wasn't a good word. We could just eliminate that word, it's still,
Official
Totally
email shall
appropriate
be
to state.
provided. True.
Just not within, just with a written
well,
copy.
it doesn't have to be that, just provided a written copy.
Either way, the written's the essence of it, and that's the best part.
Right.
So that word, like you said, could be changed or, yeah, and I agree with Lisa that that it needs to be, the response needs to be in writing. And the public hearing part, that whole thing needs to be changed. That public hearing, I don't know what the mindset was when this was created, because that in itself puts it in the essence of the type of hearing it's putting it in. I mean, you have,
Well, the action should be at a public hearing.
but at a regular, it should be at a regular.
board meeting.
Because a public hearing is a totally different thing. That public hearing could fall within a regular meeting or a special meeting, but it in itself has its own requirements, such as the
Well-
presentation and the ongoing comments in it and stuff. You have to set up rules regarding a public hearing itself.
Well,
Within that,
where it says public hearing, it should say public hearing and/or closed hearing.
no, it shouldn't say public hearing. It should say, it should be at a board meeting, because a public hearing has its own.
Well,
The whole thing with a public hearing is,
we're using the term hearing as their chance to speak up.
but you would say, you would want to, I'll get you the,
Will you just say public meeting then and not public?
yeah,
hearing?
because that's the first question that was raised. Why does it say hearing instead of a public meeting? Because the hearing has its own guidelines.
So do they need to respond in writing at a public hearing then?
Well, I would think, and this is another problem, if you're getting that right at the public hearing, at that point, how do you even make a decision, or at the public meeting? So you're asking, should the response be
Right away.
At the
within,
next public meeting.
well, and that's one thing we need to consider part of this other thing, because it has requirements regarding,
Since we're dropping the orally, we would also drop it as they may choose.
yes. You change the hearing,
The public hearing to public meeting.
yep. See, these are questions within this one itself. Oops.
They're really common sense things, but you gotta spell them.
Well, and that's where I think we're gonna wanna take part of this. We're gonna wanna keep part of this and take part of this proposed amendment, because that does spell out where, another thing is there's open-ended. It does not say how long they have to appeal in the current
That was my next
24,
question.
and that is referred to, so that might be where part of this other one comes into play.
Do we have that proposed amendment? Is that?
You don't have it with you?
No.
Sure. Do you need one too, Debbie?
I don't have it with, wait a minute.
And you guys have it? You have it, it's on the back of what you
I
have.
know.
I think I have it on the back, yeah, I have it, I have it.
Okay, Lyle, you don't have it?
I thought it did, but it's,
Yeah, I have it with my other stuff.
But make a copy of this sheet. I guess Lyle won't have a copy. sometimes you can hear back here and sometimes you can't.
You can't hear us?
Yes, sometimes. It's the way you got the, it's set into the microphone too.
I was
Yeah,
gonna say, the
if-
way they got the microphone set, I can hear better today than I have in past meetings.
Well, it's because there are very few of us here.
Ah,
There's not a whole lot of people absorbing the sound.
well, I know at my house, I'm declared to have selective hearing, and I think I'm doing pretty good right now.
Who accuses you of that?
You got it turned up, huh?
All right, so everybody has, the board members all have a copy of it now. So I would take a moment to go ahead and read that.
Well, as we
Are
read
you
this,
jumping to the proposal?
Yeah, I'm thinking, because our
This
biggest
is what-
question is section
I mean,
C.
this is gonna be just put right in here, we're not gonna do this separate, right? This is gonna be just incorporated in,
Well, it's, if we, whatever we take out of this, because we're gonna have changes in this.
so we'll do it all
So
at
the
once.
whole thing's gonna have to be,
So this will not be used as a
Not-
separate thing.
not as a standalone, the whole
That's-
thing will
that
be
was
an
my question.
amendment if, whatever we choose to include. And the reason I'm going to that is because that's reference to section C,
Okay,
subsection C of section 6.
yep.
And so you're going to the first paragraph before the numbers.
Well, first of all, we'll eliminate short title, that whole thing will be eliminated.
If you amend an ordinance, it's just like creation of an ordinance. So that short title will be there, but it will be totally, it will say a different thing, because if we're looking at changes throughout the whole ordinance, it's going to make a difference. So short title will stay, but the verbiage that's behind it will be
That'll be
changed.
submitted right into the regular ordinance.
So what,
Correct,
I think,
and-
I think what Lyle's trying to say, will this just be attached to the original ordinance?
No, it would be an amendment, and whenever you create an amendment, it still has to look like this. An amendment still is, it's just like an ordinance. You have to go through the same process to adopt it and everything
But
as
this
a
whole
regular
change,
ordinance.
are we doing an amendment then?
This, it would be an amendment to ordinance 24, but it has to appear like this, so the whole thing would appear in the form. Or you're saying, should each section that's referred to be amended and only amendments show up? What's the best way to do it? Not sure.
No, we want to complete,
But you're gonna want a complete thing, so. And can you just note where the changes are? I don't know. We'll find out legally, but either way, it's all gonna be one thing that's adopted
because it's
regarding
very confusing
amendments.
to have two sets of,
Well, whenever you have an amendment, you have
What
a
you
set that,
I would assume that you have to have it adopted, the amendments, but then you can make out a whole nother thing with the amendments enacted
and
in them.
I'm not sure how legally we would find out, but I think too, is there a way, if we have to, then where you're incorporating what is, you know how you see all the stuff where stuff is crossed out, and then the amendments placed in there? Maybe that's the way. But either way, you're still gonna have a whole new thing. You're saying you'd rather have a whole new one rather than this and have to revert back to the original ordinance 24 and then you have another one with just the changes. That would be confusing.
we just need one paper, we don't need
Yeah.
two or three.
Well, let's find out how we can do it. Most of the times, if you see it in any state papers, what they have is the lines crossed out if the stuff is amended and the amendments put in there, so let's find out.
May I offer an idea?
Okay, Bob, just this once. Just this once.
My years of working at the power company, we had many procedures. And when the procedure initially was adopted and the staff of the plant signed the back, any time that it was, and they're all subject to revision, anytime a revision occurred, we would highlight the revision, and on the bottom of each procedure, there was a note that said all highlighted entries are revisions, and those revisions are dated whatever the date. And that comes back to one document, not multiple documents. And when you approve that procedure, and in this case 24, and the changes that you're making are highlighted, it might be one word, it might be a sentence, it might be a whole paragraph, and it's noted by the highlighted segment, it lets a new reader see the sequence of events that have occurred.
And that's similar to where I'm saying
Okay.
where the original stays in there and is crossed out, and the new is put in, and it's the same thing, it's noted and dated behind it. I don't know what the best way, but that's a good point. We'll have to see how that comes apart. But I'm with you, we need just more, if we're referring to something, we need to be able to refer to what's current and give them the whole thing, say, here's this part, oh, wait a minute, here's this part, and wait, it was amended back here. So you're giving them multiple parts. I absolutely agree, that doesn't make sense.
No.
And remember, in amongst the codification, this all will eventually be put in a book, but also available on the internet for anybody to access. So it needs to be made clear whenever they're reading it what it means, what's current. So that said, I'm not sure how that part works. We'll find out as we get there. So you're right about the short title. That part would change. I'm talking about once we get past section 1, that first paragraph before the numbers, where it's referring to any disciplinary action. I think that makes sense with the 30 days.
I agree.
With the 30 calendar days, it kind of puts a time frame in there.
Who wrote this? Did Doug write it?
Doug wrote this.
You said you got it from MTA and...
No, MTA is who I spoke to first.
Oh.
And MTA couldn't, because I wanted to know about the public hearing aspect. That just blew my mind. I didn't, even though I'd read ordinance 24 multiple times, that hearing word did not come into mind. I kept thinking of meeting. And then I read that and I said, wait a minute, this is, so I talked to MTA and to Doug. Doug is the one that created this. What preceded that was both gentlemen asked for a closed hearing, and then I said, well, I don't even see how we can do it now. So I asked them how, what was possible, and this is what came out of it, which then went nowhere, which is okay too. I'm okay with that. I just know that this section has been discussed before on the previous board, and we know it's got issues, so we need to see what we can do to rectify it as we go along. So just,
I agree with the writing and delivered to the township clerk no more than, yep,
just the first paragraph, does
so
everybody
far,
read?
yep.
Lyle? Done? Just the first paragraph.
Well, you can't say just the first
No, I just
paragraph
want-
because it just consists, all of these, the
No,
following.
we're gonna look at those next.
Okay.
We're looking at them by chunks.
Okay.
So let's just say by paragraph, because there might be stuff we agree with and don't agree with.
Okay.
So
let's break it.
just the paragraph, okay?
Are we done?
With the paragraph, yes. We're done with the first paragraph. Now we're going to the numerics.
I think the numerics look right.
Okay.
I
Lyle?
do it.
The 1 through 6? 1 through 5?
1 through 5.
1 through 5, not 6. 1 through 5.
Number 6 would just be eliminated.
No, number 6 we
No,
haven't got
number
to.
6 is that whole paragraph.
Yeah, so we're going through number 1 through 5. That's just asking for specific information.
Actually, 6
Yeah, we're gonna
would
go
be
to 6.
okay too, because the stuff underneath it has to do with the whole process, not with just number 6.
No, but we gotta, number 6 is a large chunk, so we're gonna only go, does
Oh, I
everybody
didn't
agree
think-
through 1 through 5?
Oh, I don't think that it is.
It isn't? Oh, I see what you mean. Yes, you're right, correct. I was reading it as a paragraph, and you're right, 6. So 1 through 6. 1 through 6 being only one sentence.
Yeah.
So, are we okay with 1 through 6?
Yes.
Okay, now we're down to the next large paragraph. And this is a question that we raised where it now says public meeting. Then it does give a time frame for that. Then it, 45 days. Then it gives a right to consider an appeal, closed session. Made in an open meeting, which is correct by law. And now here's where the next question raised. This was just, I'm not sure, I said, we need to know, because on this, who can participate in the room of the closed session itself? Who can be in there? The person appealing or 10 people or what? That's a question, that's where we're at right now. Where it starts with only the township board, the individual appealing. I know the question was raised about the chief, why would the chief be in there? That's a good question.
And the
Any other-
second point is they have the right to have an attorney.
Well, that was the whole thing. Now, is the
And the chief
question
should
is,
not be in there.
well,
because
that's where the
person
question
that-
was. So you want to remove the chief
And add an attorney to
and
the employees.
And here was the other, this is the question regarding the closed session. Because the person has a right to request the closed session, the person appealing. Then the question then was, who else can be in there? So you're saying only the township board, the individual appealing, and rather than the rest of this stuff after saying an attorney representing the person
The
appealing.
employee.
The individual appealing.
Okay, the individual.
Okay, trying to understand this whole process of a closed meeting because I've never seen one happen.
Sure.
Why wouldn't you want the chief in?
At the time.
He's the one that's making the,
Accusations, correct?
If I was the person appealing and the chief was sitting right beside me, how would I be able to communicate to the board all the problems that have developed because of the chief or against the chief with him sitting there? He's got no reason to be in there.
so you're thinking it's an intimidation act to have
Yes.
him
Well-
and the accused wouldn't be able to speak freely and,
I can't foresee anybody going in to appeal something and have the chief in there with them.
Well,
I mean, if it was me, I would just refuse to go in.
you're thinking of court. And court, you have the right to face your,
This is,
and I'm just saying, that's what this is. That's what you're saying. In the
This is-
court, that's,
Yeah.
I think too, another thing that is in reference to that, I think if things came up where there was truly questions, then you would go back into open session and at that point, you may even postpone it because you have
questions or
questions and more
unanswered
information. But I
events
don't,
and-
I'm not disagreeing with the chief should be in there. So I'm not even disagreeing with the other because I'm not sure, you don't, if you're gonna take everybody, say, there's 20 people in the audience and 10 of them you're gonna take in closed session, that just doesn't seem right. I see the employees right, but then you're just taking everything out of, you don't want the public to see any of it. What's the point of being able to do this? So I believe the employee has the right, I believe it's necessary. But I think I gotta agree with Lyle on that some of that's just too far out there. So I see what you're saying on that sentence in particular, saying only the township board, the individual appealing and, whoops, I didn't write that down. And his attorney. Yeah, let me just cross it out. And,
It's just basically them giving their side of it, that's why they're having the closed hearing. And we already have the chief's side of it because the chief is the one that already gave us all the
the
information
whole
for
written
why.
reprimand.
Right.
With
Okay,
all
now-
the details that we'd ask for at the
and we
time.
can always call the chief to meet with us afterwards before we made a decision. I mean,
well, you would have
We're
to,
not eliminating the
inquire-
chief,
no,
it's
you're
just
inquiring.
eliminating for that particular meeting.
it would be in, it would never be in a closed session.
No.
Right, okay. But the other question is, now, the only other thing is, you're allowing the attorney for the employer should we put in there also the rights for if the board wants the attorney, our township attorney?
We're not a court.
I know we're not a court, but I'm just saying, do we want to have it in there or not? I'm not asking if we do, I'm not saying we do.
Well,
I said,
for
do we?
me, on the
Do
same
we?
hand, that you don't want the chief in there because of intimidating factors. I'm sorry, but attorneys intimidate me.
Okay.
If I want to, if we're just going to hear the accused side of things without anything else, I don't know that the attorneys.
So you think it should just be the individual, the board and the individual appealing?
You know, unless they have somebody else that they want in there that can bear witness to a certain event or.
But I don't think
the
they should be in the
attorney
closed
can witness
session.
Maybe a difference in the law, the way it's interpreted or something.
But that would be one attorney's opinion, what if our attorney's opinion?
Oh.
So there's a question there.
Anyway.
Should there be attorneys in there or only the township board and an individual appealing? That's something,
The only thing is that I think that the closed hearing is just hearing the accused side. If they want an attorney in there representing them, I think that's their right. That doesn't mean we have to go by everything that they say, and we can contact our attorney afterwards and talk to him about it if we need to.
but the question is, are we getting, if we're trying to seek the appealer's side, the individual appealing side, are we gonna want that person in there continually looking at their attorney for yes or no, or do we actually want to get that individual's version of what it is? Remember, they've also submitted written, so this is just initial or additional stuff if there is anything, because the actual action has to be in the open meeting. So I don't know, I'm thinking it should just be
Do
the
they
board
have-
and the.
Do they have a right to bring their attorney in though? That's, I guess, what I need to know.
They
Is,
should.
is that their right to bring an attorney in?
That's only
This
if
is
we,
not- Excuse me, I'm sorry. This is not a court thing here. I don't think anybody should come, what the guy is doing, a guy or a lady or woman's over there that comes in, all they're doing is telling their side of the story. And we have to make that judgment. We don't need anybody else but the two, what you can consider combatants talking to us.
well, we've already gotten their version in writing, so this is, I agree.
Face is another thing.
I think it
I
should
can go
be,
for that.
I think it should be the township board and the individual appealing. So that's something to think about. I think I don't know that attorneys at that point should be involved. It isn't a legal case. That still comes later if they're not happy with the decision. I think they need to be in there representing themselves.
So then then the township supervisor has the ability to have other individuals that can say something about the case can be in the closed meeting.
I crossed all that off. I crossed off from the chief on, because I think only the township board and the individual appealing, but that's, like I said, my opinion, that's not, how is that leading to what we're required to do if you're taking everybody and his brother in that closed room? Then that could get totally the wrong way too.
Right. I
So-
agree with that.
It's a closed session in a public setting.
Well, absolutely, it's almost like you're just skirting the law there. So
From here into there.
so that's my thoughts on why I don't think attorneys should be involved, only because the process still is available to them ultimately through the court system.
Mhm. So this is just getting the other person's side.
Correct, well, this is, if they
Even
have,
though they have already submitted something to us in writing, they can bring everything and we
Yeah,
can
but they're on a
question.
time frame. I guess the way I look at it, they're on a time frame to get that written appeal input to us. And in that 45 days that we have,
If they have anything else.
they may remember something. They may recall something that
Or have
would have
anything
a great impact on.
the whole-
we don't,
Case.
or they might have a need to explain some of what they've written, or feel they have a need.
Mhm.
If you read it versus it said to you, so whatever, just the
And
right
they
for them.
they just have the right, they don't
They
have
have
to
the
do
right.
it. They don't
Absolutely.
have to do the closed meeting.
But I think we all have agreed,
Okay.
previous board also, that was an issue that should be there. They should have that right. But I think the rest of that stuff that you were asking about needs to go out of there.
I agree with that.
I agree with
And then we go down to the township board may on its own initiative bring charges, that was in the previous one. And write down how it has to be done. I think what they, because if you look at this is just section C that was being rewritten that we're looking at.
Right.
And this is something everybody needs to take back with them and really think about, reread, look at the notes we've made, because it's not anything you're gonna sit down and make a decision on today, and you really need to be able to read it in its context and put the thought in it. But at this point, I see the main issues is those couple lines. The severability is the same. We aren't quite done with ordinance 24 itself, though, because we still have D, E. And then we have D on the current ordinance 24. I think that makes sense.
Where are you at?
I am on 6D,
Okay.
because this is just referring to C.
Okay.
D is regarding, that's a township property, we all know if that happens, or the, at a property scene, so that makes sense. And then E makes absolute sense.
Thanks, Bob.
Absolute sense. One thing we have not got reference to in here,
Except
which is
for one
medical
word.
marijuana. We need to really
We
figure
need
out what we can do there.
to- You know, we need to address that, but also, I don't understand the word firefighters. Are we talking about the firefighters? Are we talking about everybody on the fire department?
It should say fire personnel.
Yeah, I should
That's
say
what- that's-
fire personnel
That
is,
was my point.
yeah, it's all of them, so.
Because
The way
the
it
chief
reads
gets to
now,
go
the
party,
firefighters
and
can,
but,
but
No,
the
it's
chief
any-
and the captain can all come in and stop.
But they're all
Right.
fire, they're still firefighters, they're just, yeah. So yes, fire personnel makes
I
more
like
sense.
that better too.
Yeah.
I read that the other night, and I thought, oh, that doesn't make sense at all.
So that's all of this that we definitely need to take back and reread and see what we think about where we're going.
well, I for one really have appreciated this meeting. And I have, not a total better understanding, but a better understanding of what this ordinance is.
Well, I'm still confused about something.
Okay?
We had all this attachment to the ordinance.
That's not part of ordinance
And I
24.
personally will not approve ordinance 24 in a public meeting if we don't address some of these things that's in here.
That is-
Descriptions. This is the time we can add that stuff to this ordinance because we're changing it. Otherwise, we have a chaplain that acts like an officer. In ordinance 24, there's no such position. We shouldn't even have a chaplain. He certainly should not be an officer.
We need to address the SOGs because that is gone. SOGs are what is in place.
This,
And
some
that's
of the
never
stuff
been-
has to be adapted.
That has never been part of ordinance 24.
But we considered a part of 24, way back when we, Dave Byrne came before us and asked that we ask for 2 more people on that committee to nominate.
But that wasn't part of ordinance 24.
But so why did he come before us and why did we approve it?
And
Because
if
it's
you're,
written in
is
here.
it in that or the last SOGs or
It's in
these
here.
SOGs? But it's not part of
What are
ordinance
you
24.
referring to, Lyle?
Well, we've got to add to ordinance 24.
Well,
Some of the stuff has to be in.
Not, should it be in ordinance 24 or it has to be in these? And
Uh,
you're gonna
The
restrict
law is
yourself?
ordinance 24.
Right, are you gonna
The
restrict yourself?
policies are policies.
Correct.
So if we're gonna have a chaplain, I think he should be part of the law of ordinance 24 or.
You're
use a
saying-
Position.
We need to add them in because in here it lists in different areas. You're talking about where it lists the lieutenant and chief and all that. It
We gotta
has
address those
lists.
kinds of things.
It has lists. But then it refers to, this is the current breakdown of job descriptions and everything. Everybody doesn't have that because that is not part of the ordinance. That is, remember when we adopted the
Well, that's
SOGs?
part of our confusion. We've had.
Well, that's what I'm
We treated
understanding.
this as part of ordinance 24. Larry has referred to it with descriptions of the positions. You know, captain's.
No, that's this.
description. Listen to me.
Yeah,
Before we ever had all those policies,
yes.
we were following this.
Before we had these policies, we had another set. There was another set between.
Very brief. They were.
I'd have to find the old
Right.
ones. But before we had these, whatever was in place before was policies, not the ordinance. So ordinance is only the ordinance. So if we're gonna look at that, everybody didn't have copies of that. And we also need to look at this, what's currently in place. But I think you're right, in ordinance 24, we don't have descriptions of every
Well,
thing anymore.
it's just very confusing to have all these papers for the same thing.
I see that. I see you're confused. And I think these guys are confused only because they have
Because
the
I'm
ordinance.
confusing
Well,
them.
no, only because they have the ordinance and they don't have
What do
any
you
of
have
that.
now?
They don't have any of that. So there's confusion because they don't have any of that
Wow.
stuff you're talking about.
How did I get it?
That's a good question. I would say from Fred, because I'm reading the wording on it, the writing.
This was just a copy I asked for later.
Oh, okay. So I'm just saying
The
that.
original one I have at home and doesn't have anybody's,
As it's titled.
and then see, it gives the chain of command, it's got the job descriptions, the fire marshal, and
Didn't
everybody's.
we get that in with a packet?
Yes, you did. You got that in the packet from Butch, but he had it in with the ordinance and it's not part of the ordinance. So you do have it, but it's
Everybody's
not.
description is very complete in it, even the fire chief.
Okay.
But
This is
we
what I'm
have,
saying, it's very confusing to have all these duplicate things.
I
And,
agree.
and you have the SOG that has the current
and
description.
the
It's an
SOGs, I can't
actual-
believe 100,
Document that was approved.
yeah.
Yeah, but then we have the SOGs that,
Came
anything,
after.
yeah, that was just,
That would have, does it state that it repeals this?
And this is,
that's a good question. Well, that's what we have to, but anyway, that's a good
We're full
question.
of
What I'm
confusion,
saying is,
that's the
no,
whole
Thank
problem.
you.
I'm just saying right now, Lyle's asking a question of something that nobody else on this board has because it's not part of the ordinance. So nobody has it. And then if you're gonna take that, we have to take into what's currently adopted compared to if that was repealed.
Everything has to be in agreement, and
Oh, that's true.
this is the worst example of it.
But that's also policy.
I
So
know.
that policy, if everything that governs the fire department is in here, then the reference should be made in that handbook that it's governed by what is
The
governed.
policies should agree with whatever's stated in here.
Or there has to be a
Why
reference
do
that
we
it's governed by
have the
this.
handbook if it's already covered in?
No, the handbook's for employees,
Okay.
not just fire personnel, but if the fire personnel are governed by ordinance 24 and SOGs, then in our personnel handbook, which was written in 2004 and has not been changed, needs to be looked at, then we need to reference what is regarding the fire department and the personnel,
it's
what
on
governs
there as
them
well.
versus the way it is now, because there's nothing in there.
Boy,
It doesn't,
boy.
it's differentiated
I
anyway.
I know, that's why we keep getting all
Which,
these
by the way,
papers.
everybody got a copy of tonight, because Lyle asked for one. So the next thing is,
For the
we haven't even
handbook?
got to that SOGs.
Oh, it even
For
tells
what?
how you're supposed to answer the
Uh-huh.
phone. I'm doing it right.
The employee handbook,
Okay,
yeah,
all right.
but not that, not what he just referred to. So
Right.
that's another question of another day, we haven't even got. This is just the ordinance. We haven't even got to anything else regarding, this is just the laws regulating, this isn't the every fine bit of it. This is just the law itself, so. So is there any other regarding the ordinance 24? I know, like I said, we need to all take it home, look this all over, see where we're at, read it in context of
Well,
proposed changes.
I took the ordinance, and I took the handbook, and I took these, laid all three out,
Mhm.
And I was so confused with it in a few minutes that I gave up.
Well, I think the miscommunication is because this trumps the personnel handbook.
Why?
Ordinance
Because-
24.
Because
Trumps it.
that's the law, and that handbook is just a written piece of paper.
And then in ordinance 24, we require the chief create guidelines, and we adopted those guidelines. So this is what regulates the fire
But it's
department at
still a
this
piece of
time.
paper, it's still not the law.
This is a policy, and
Yeah,
It's just a piece of
policy
paper.
is just a guideline.
yeah, and that needs to
My
direct,
understanding is the ordinance is law.
And that's why we gotta
Absolutely.
have all three in mind at the same time.
but then the reference needs to be perhaps in the handbook
That's what we'll have to
to
figure out.
what regulates fire department, because there's no differentiating in
I
place.
guess what I'm saying is we're getting more complicated
Yes,
as we talk, but it's gotta be ironed out.
It
Well-
says right in the employee handbook, fire department is governed by SOG with board liaison clerk.
yep. So the reference is in there, so that takes care of how the
So-
governing is.
Then they don't have to pay any attention to ordinance 24.
Yes, they do. So the reference should be in the ordinance
If they're
24.
governed by the
If they're covered by the
SOG
SOGs, they
and
don't
not
have
ordinance
to.
So we need to
24.
reference
That's
it,
what I
but we
mean.
need to, that's another day, Lila.
That's why I say we're so confused.
The
as a
employee
board.
handbook is another day.
I can
'cause
see
that's
how the
in-
fire department's gotta be confused too.
The reference
I'm putting
isn't
you
wrong,
in
but it
charge
should
of
include
clearing up my
ordinance
confusion now,
24.
Lyle.
Pardon?
I'm putting you in charge of clearing up my confusion.
I'll try to help you.
Well, we're not to that one yet, we're still working on this one. We're not to that one, we're not to that one
No.
there, the handbook, we're to
Right.
this one still. So yes, that needs clarified, I don't doubt, that was written in 2004, yes, it needs clarified, we're 9 years out. You know. So, all right, any more of the boards on ordinance 24? Are we good with the fact that we gotta take this home and read it?
Yep, I'm good with that.
Okay, let's go to public comment. And we did receive, hang on,
Just read ordinance 24 again.
I want you to read ordinance 24, the proposed amendment to ordinance 24. I want you to read it in context of the notes of some of the ideas of changing, and perhaps it'll even prompt more questions rather than answers, so.
Do we want to establish another meeting at this point before we go to public comment?
Yeah, that'll be
Next
interesting.
week sometime would be good.
No, you're
No,
going
we're gonna have
next
to
week,
go, no.
not next week.
July 30 or August. That would be 6. I think we should give it to August 6th.
I think I have a
personally.
meeting Thursday, the 30th, I can't remember,
What's the, yeah.
the 30th, I think. So,
We have to have it on a Monday?
no,
No, this is Tuesday.
Oh, this is last year, I'm sorry. I have a meeting on the 30th.
you do too, so do I.
Yes, I have a Muskegon County
This
Treasurer's
is
meeting.
2012.
I see it.
So shall we shoot for August
We
6th?
haven't been
That's
updated.
fine.
with
That is
you.
a Tuesday. August 6th, okay with you?
I vote for the 27th of July.
So we will revisit, we will have a
Wait a
special.
minute, 2 o'clock?
Yep.
Okay. Okay,
When is it?
August
6th.
6th, 2 p.m.
At what time?
2 p.m. Okay,
So we
now,
will reconvene.
no, not reconvene, it's a
Oh.
new meeting.
Charge you
It's
rent.
a new meeting.
Yeah,
Okay,
August
never
6th.
mind.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, don't
Now-
confuse one more.
Public comment, and before we start, I'm gonna tell you that we did receive, the handout we received was from Bob Dornbush. We're taking far longer than our 3-minute time, so he kind of split us with a printed copy. And I believe he wants to take 3 minutes to say something.
All right, I'll make it real fast.
Okay,
Using ordinance 24, I'd like to start at the back and go to the front. Section 9, in my opinion, you should remove that entirely because that becomes an SOG. I'm going to move fast because of 3 minutes. Section 8, paragraph A, says the fire chief or his or her designee may release facts regarding fires or other emergencies. I wish to add which happened in Blue Lake. Any emergencies outside of Blue Lake Township, our authority should not be responding, as in the Mason County incident. which could have jeopardized the prosecution of that case.
So in our jurisdiction, then.
Okay,
Yep.
Section 7, I believe that's in conflict with section 5C. Section 6, even language in section 3E, there seems to be a conflict. And with regard to section 5, paragraph A, of periodic background checks, in this day and age, I think background checks to the fullest extent possible are in order. Again, this would be section 3, paragraph E. I believe recommendations from the chief should be met with the town board approval in writing, and the chief should not be taking any action without the town board's approval. The town board is the hiring and firing entity. And,
Which section was that?
what's that?
Which section was that? E?
I was looking at section 6A compared to section E, paragraph, or section 3, paragraph E.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and then lastly, I'll read my last paragraph and the thing you already have. It said all personnel records must be kept by an appointed member of the township board in all circumstances. There must not be 2 employee files. The township board must follow up with discipline if infractions that happen are not dealt with by the management team leading the fire department. In-place standards demand that Blue Lake Township Board take steps to discipline those members of the fire department that have violated the standards currently. Failure to take action through disciplinary action indicates that the Blue Lake Township Board's not doing its job. That's it.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir?
May I?
Yep, let me get my paper.
Oh, one more thing. This book, you guys,
In on my time.
I'm sorry, this book is available to you folks. I get it through MTA. And I tell you, it's a cover-to-cover common sense thing from my vantage point. After 20 years in the fire service, this would help you tremendously. Thanks, Fred.
Could we buy that for?
Fred Arbogast, 11645 Pond Road. First of all, I would like to commend the board on today's work session. You discussed ordinance 24 at a previous meeting, and you were all over the board. This was organized today. I commend you. Second, will the final ordinance as it's written and ready to be adopted be published so the public knows what's going on? The public pays special millage to pay for this fire department, and they should know how the fire department is governed and run. And then, second of all, or thirdly, who evaluates the plain old firemen, POS, officers, and the chief to let them know that they are doing a good job or a bad job? And does that evaluation appear in their personnel files? I got some notes on the amendment proposed. You were discussing how to number this and so on and so forth. In the past, we had that set problem with other ordinances and amendments. The attorney said you can amend an ordinance and attach it as an amendment. Identify it with some sort of number. Or you can make it a separate ordinance number. When you look up laws in the state of Michigan, and one in particular you're looking at, said the last paragraph underneath it says as amended. Where do you look? Where do you start looking for the amendment? For instance, we amended the zoning ordinance twice in my tenure. We called them Amendment 1, Amendment 2, etc. Going to your amendment, in the last paragraph, it talks about who should be included in the closed session. I know you just went over that, and I appreciate that, but I just wanted to make a remark. The way it reads now would be the accuser and the accused would be allowed either in the judge's chambers or the jury sequestration room. And if a violation occurs by the chief, you're stating who should take action. The board should take action. How do we know if a violation has occurred if only a member of the fire department is observing that violation and he's afraid to speak for fear of violating the chain of command? Is the chain of command too much regulated? Is it too materialized? In other words, the military, if you believe your commanding officer has violated the law, you better not speak up or he could have you thrown in a brig. Should we have that in our township? And standard operating guides, SOGs, that's merely what they are, standard operating guidelines. We used to have SOPs, standard operating procedures, and any attorney who found out we didn't abide by those would have a free-for-all in court. That's why we established these guidelines. They are not laws, they are not have-to-be's, they are guidelines only. It's like a road map. You may get to your destination via a different route rather than the prescribed map. And then, don't forget, whatever you adopt here, employees must live with it. And employers must live with their employees. If you lose your fire department personnel, you've lost your protection. Enough said.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was 5 minutes though. I know. All right, that's it? I think we're...
I too would like to thank the board for taking the time. It's been whopping 2 hours. I think it's time well spent. I assume that there'll be more hours to be used on this subject, but I think the outcome will be beneficiary to all.
Thank you. Meeting, Bob, you had to say...
I'm just waiting.
Wait. Okay, I gotta claim these.
On the cemetery ordinance on the back, it says, "This ordinance shall take effect immediately upon publication. All ordinances or parts of ordinances which conflict with this ordinance are repealed as of the effective date." So what I'm saying is, you can write a whole new ordinance 24 and put in there, everything is null and void from before. And if you do, you should include, like Lyle's saying, the SOGs, parts of them, parts of the handbook should be included, and all this discussion today, I have heard nothing about any discipline for the fire chief or any regulation to control him.
Yeah, we did.
Thank
We
you,
talked.
please. Comments?
Okay? Okay.
All right.
Now, I have one other thing.
Yeah.
I got an interesting phone call this afternoon from a lady from Chicago. She's been going to the Ware Cemetery for the last 40 years and knows a whole lot about it, and gravestones that have been stolen or robbed out of there, and also graves that have been dug up back in the 60s and 70s. And I'm going to try to find out more information on the graves that were dug up and so forth. There's more to that cemetery than we know about, and maybe she can shed some light onto it.
Okay, thank you for your comment.
And then
Meeting?
your job is to let us know what's going on.
Yeah.
Well, I'll try.
Meeting's adjourned. Yeah, he's coming. He just said he was
Usually
done.
we have, if it's adjourned, then say it is. Thank you.
Meeting's adjourned.
That wasn't my fault, so I guess I don't.
'Thanks.
3:52
So, well,
PM.
We'll see you.
Okay, Take care.
Yep.
All right, Bob, you need to get with Lisa regarding, I think she's gonna get a
What?
corrections to the contract and
Oh, you gonna give me a
before
correction?
any work's done there, all that has to be done through Lisa.